In today's economy, a lot of people need two jobs just to be able to keep up. That doesn't mean you can't find one job that'll pay you enough. It just means for many, it's not that simple. If you're watching this video, you're probably a remote worker. That's a tongue twister. I'm gonna do that again. If you're watching this, you're probably a remote worker, or maybe thinking about starting remote work. Now, it isn't new. And if for whatever reason you don't know what remote work is, imagine an office job, but at home. Think corporate employees, online influencers, or phone scammers. Kidding. Kind of. One of the biggest things that remote workers take for granted is time. And before we get into exactly how to take advantage of that time, let's rewind to what life was like pre-pandemic. You know, when people thought hand sanitizer was optional. Here's what a typical day in the office looked like. You wake up before the sun, rush your morning routine because you wanted just 5 more minutes of sleep, then jump into your soul-crushing commute. You curse at other commuters who are also cursing at you. You sit in traffic for at least an hour and a half. You finally drag yourself into an office already exhausted, work a full shift, then hit rush hour on the way home, which feels more like a rush eternity. You curse out 2 to 4 more people, arrive exhausted, and because cooking feels like a second job, you order takeout, crash late, and repeat the process all over again tomorrow. Sound familiar? Let's jump into the video. The time excuse is gone. The biggest excuse people made for not making any changes in their life is I don't have time. I can't start that diet. I don't have any time. I can't start that side hustle. I just don't have any time. I can't clean that chair with all my dirty clothes on it. I don't have any time. Well, if you work remotely, what's your excuse now? You're saving at least 2 hours a day on that miserable commute. That's 10 plus hours a week. When I started working from home, I realized that I was saving at least $600 a month just on the commute. I personally used that money to pay off debt, but more importantly, I had time on my hands. I used that time to improve my education. I got a nutrition certification so that way I could take care of myself, but also help out a few other people. The money that I was making off of that wasn't retirement money, but it was money that I didn't have before anyway. And honestly, that pace made me think of time as currency. If I save time in one area, I could spend that time on something in another area, maybe something that matters more to me. I use that time to focus on my health and start this YouTube channel. Would I have committed to a hobby or a side hustle if I still had to commute every single day? Probably not. The excuse of no time would have beaten me. Besides time, there's one huge way that remote workers can save money, and that's cooking at home. I kind of feel like I'm just an advocate for cooking at home now. Like, buy a pot and a pan and like a spatula maybe. I admit that I am weak when it comes to food. Just like, look at this photo of me. My goal is to never go back to that. But anyway, this one habit of cooking at home saved my health, but also saved me a ton of money. When I worked in an office, I was always tempted to buy food. Even if I was a good boy and brought my lunch with me, I would still most likely give in and still buy extra food that most likely was not healthy for me. And if somehow I was an even gooder boy, I'd still have to drive past like every fast food joint on the way home. If by some miracle I avoided those 2 major temptations, I'd still be way too tired to cook when I got home, so I'd just order on Uber. Now, I actually cook. I defrost my meat midday, so it's ready by dinner. Or even better, I just throw things in a slow cooker. Literally 0 effort. There are thousands upon thousands of recipes out there. Toss it in a pot, and that's it. What a time to be alive. Lastly, spend your time wisely. Like I mentioned earlier, if you start using your time or thinking of your time as currency, you'll actually start spending it better. And no, you don't have to start a side hustle and become like a millionaire by 30. I mean, like that would be nice, but not realistic. Don't just start chasing money because you'll never catch up. Use your time to read more, get an online degree, learn a new language, or I don't know, learn how to build an Iron Man suit. Just do something that makes you happy. Because let's be real, most people work jobs that they don't actually like. If you're lucky enough to work remotely, this is your sign to use that time for something that actually fulfills you. Comment below, what have you done with all the extra time that you have as a remote worker? Now, if you've enjoyed the sounds that my mouth has put in your ears, then consider hitting that like button. Subscribe for more tips from some random dude on the internet. Check out this video here that YouTube thinks you'll like, unless you've had like too much screen time today, in which case I'll see you next week. Peace.